Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Hope you had a great Independence Day, as I know I sure did. And to celebrate, I'm going to bring us back to one of my old and more favorite stories from the past. So sit back, relax, and get ready to experience a retelling of Uncle Sam Wants You. It wasn't quite the 4th of July yet, but my hometown holds the According Festival on the same day of the week each year, so the actual holiday was still another day away. But the night of the fireworks display would be that night, and it was tradition for my mother and I to attend. This time, I had agreed to bring my friend Bill. Billy was one of those kids that was fun to hang out with when there was no one else around. The kind of kid that was so annoying, you really could only enjoy his company about 20% of the time. Still, a part of me felt bad for him. I mean, the kid had even less friends than I did, so it seemed I couldn't resist when I asked him to accompany me to the local park on the river. The highlight of this spot was Jumping Jacks, a very successful little restaurant that filled orders for customers the same way it had done since the 1950s. First, you had to wait in a line so long, the sheer look of it was enough to make inexperienced customers feel discouraged before even braving the end of the line. The surprising thing about this place was how fast the line did indeed move, but that was in part due to their specialized form of shouting out orders after pointing at customers close to the front of the line. When the chef pointed at you, you were expected to call out your order on demand, so as to not hold up the entire process. Just being pressured into yelling out a single order could make a customer freeze with anxiety, but my mother had to memorize and instantly call out 3, drinks included. I was amazed how she could recall things the way that she did, but I'm sure even she was feeling the intensity of that particular moment. What I at first assumed would take over an hour only took about 15 minutes in hindsight, and before we knew it, the three of us were sitting at an umbrella-shaded picnic table with an excellent view of the river and the show being put on by water skiers employed at the nearby marina. The park really knew how to put on an event, and profits were reflective of that. A few years before this, there was a massive flood that devastated nearly every business establishment along the river, but the community helped chip in and actually had Jumping Jacks rebuilt. The owner repaid the community by financing the construction of a public outdoor auditorium which would hold concerts featuring local bands. The fireworks wouldn't be fired until after the band had finished playing, which would be well after dark. We had a ton of time to wait, so while my mom set up a place for all of us by the stage in the grass, I convinced her to allow Billy and I to wander through the park behind us for a while. There were police all over the place, and it was broad daylight, so she told us to come back and check in after an hour or so. Billy and I both finished up our clam boats, a toasted hot dog bun filled with fried clams and topped with cocktail sauce, and walked off away from the stage and towards the vendors, selling 4th of July themed trinkets, glow sticks, and other relevant marketable gadgets on the side of the road between the stage and the rest of the park. Traffic wasn't something to be concerned with on the day of the 4th of July festival, as the entire street was shut down to accommodate park goers and the aforementioned vendors. Billy and I took a moment to admire all the flashing gizmos and blinking jewelry that covered the mobile carts, each accompanied by a subsequent vendor decked out in half the stuff that he was peddling. My attention on all the flashing merchandise quickly waned when I couldn't help but notice the odd-looking man in a blue pinstripe suit who was staring at Billy and I. He had an iconic white beard that seemed either real or extremely realistic. He was very tall, but seemingly not due to stilts or other such device, and his hat was similar to the size and shape of former President Lincoln's, only it was blue and red with a star-spangled band spanning its base near the radial brim. His eyes were small and sort of squinted, and his brow looked almost menacing. The man raised his arm slowly and, with a finger extended, pointed right at the two of us. He never moved his lips to speak a word. I pointed him out to Billy, who was going on and on about how he wished my mother would buy him something that he saw at the vendor's booth, and subsequently, he barely seemed to notice the man. A lot of people, kids mostly, were walking by this guy, pointing and laughing in enjoyment rather than judgment, but he didn't even seem to notice or care. That fucking Uncle Sam just kept his burning stare, eventually lowering his hand. I convinced Billy that we should just go. I tried to keep up a happy appearance at the sight of this guy, but something just felt weird to me. Billy and I walked through an open field in the park and onto some of the walking trails in the back. We were almost always around small crowds of other people, but in the distance, at least half the time I looked back, no matter where we were, I could see that bright blue suit from somewhere in the distance where we had just been. At that point, I figured the guy was following us and told Billy of my concern as we walked. He still wouldn't stop complaining about my mom, telling me he couldn't give a shit about some stupid guy in an Uncle Sam costume. I wanted to head back to the stage and my mother, but he refused and told me he wanted to try and pick up some chicks. Billy was 12, and I don't think he'd know how to even talk to a girl, never mind get one to be interested in him. I humored him for a while longer, but eventually our journey brought us back towards the vendors and the stage. I told him I was getting thirsty, and I was going to ask my mother for some money for a drink. Billy asked if I could get her to just give us the money for them so he could use it to buy ourselves a couple of glow necklaces. I told him fine for now, just to shut him up, still planning on using my half for a drink. I really had become thirsty the more that I thought about it. But to our surprise, when I returned to my mother to ask for drink money, she simply handed us a couple of sodas that she had purchased while we were on our walk. I saw a moment of frustration in Billy's face before she also presented us with a pair of glow necklaces, bracelets, and these really cool light-up mohawk things for our heads. Finally, I figured he would give me some space. But my relief was short-lived when I saw him at the back of the crowd near the trash bin next to the stage. Uncle Sam was just standing there. Sure, when my mother commented on him, or presumably someone behind us, and looked at him, he would look around and seem to take everything in. But his focus was always shifting back to me and Billy. He was really starting to creep me out at this point, and I decided not to leave my mother's side again for the rest of the evening. My complacency would soon spawn deception, and my reservations eventually left me. The night continued on with the band playing through its lineup of songs, most of which were American-themed cover songs, such as the infamous Ain't That America. The grass right in front of the stage itself was replaced with a small patch of smooth concrete, which served as a play court for the kids before the concert and as a dance floor during the concert. This is when you can really see a community coming together with common interests. Parents were dancing with their children, older men were dancing with their wives, it really was a fun event to experience. Every once in a while, I would spot that Uncle Sam guy in various parts of the crowd. He was still shifting focus to me and Billy, but I was having such a good time with my mom, I really didn't give it too much more thought. Maybe he was a mental patient, or maybe he picked up on the fact that he made me nervous and thought it would be funny to exploit it, the way parents do when they open their doors on Halloween for select fearful children. The band ended with something to set an energetic tone, and then an announcement that the fireworks display would begin in 15 minutes. Instantly, you could see most of the older attendees setting up various equipment for filming. Little girls were being put on the shoulders of their fathers. Everyone was chatting about the band and the events of the day with strangers sitting next to them, each with a smile on their face. Kids were back to running around in front of the stage, having it been cleared of dancers, only now it was completely dark out, and the various glowing and blinking items that each were wearing flung about and created a nearly magical-like light show display on the grass before us. Then, a small thud, followed by the sight of a rising rocket trail shooting up into the sky on the other side of the river. Just after the light of its trail had gone out and the rocket disappeared from view, a large, flower-like, colorful arrangement of light expanded outward in the sky with a dazzling display. Finally, the boom from the post-explosion sound wave that resulted from the rocket exploding in the sky slammed into our ears, felt with our bodies. The three of us looked up in awe as we made our way closer to the stage and the river to get a better view. As the show continued, whirling spouts of light whistled as they danced near the ground as more and more rockets were set off into the black void above us. The grand finale that year was really something to see and likely cost the proprietor a considerable amount of money. When it was over, my mother and I looked at each other with smiles and laughed at how amazing the show had really been. She told me it was time to gather our things and headed to the car, as it would be a long wait to get headed home with the turnout of the festival. She told me to grab Billy and tell him to make sure that he had everything. I turned to my side, and after a moment or two of looking about in the crowd, I started to panic. Billy wasn't there. He wasn't anywhere to be seen. I figured maybe he was just somewhere nearby in the immense shifting crowd, but the longer I stared into the sea of moving people, the more I felt a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. This sensation was only strengthened when I realized, for pretty much the first time all day, that Uncle Sam guy couldn't be seen anywhere either. My mother returned to me and asked me where Billy had gone. I told her I didn't know, and she asked me what I meant, as if I wasn't speaking clearly. I tried to tell her about that Uncle Sam following us around, but she was convinced Billy had just gone to the bathroom or something, at first. The more places we checked, the more I saw desperation setting in on my mother's face. She finally broke down and informed a police officer, and even included what I had told her, thinking maybe it was related. We sat in that guard shack by the stage for a long time, what was probably hours. The police didn't return to speak to my mother until long after the last of the festival goers had left. He pulled her aside to tell her what had happened, but despite his best efforts, I overheard what he said. And this is why the 4th of July brings back such bad memories for me. Billy had been found. His attacker was also caught, red-handed, while he was attempting to dispose of the body in the river a few hundred yards away from the stage. Billy had been assaulted and murdered by an old man, dressed up as Uncle Sam. And to this day, that iconic picture with that ambiguous slogan, "Uncle Sam wants you," still sends shivers up my spine. Well, independence doesn't necessarily mean you should go off on your own. Sometimes it's best to stick with the company and direction and suggestions of others. But I hope you take my suggestion and return back here again next weekend for more gore galore. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday. Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.